Good Wednesday morning. I'm so glad to be here, and I'm so glad that you are too. So, I wanted to personally invite you to my Sunday morning trainings on how to live your best life. I actually watched a show yesterday. I've been calling this series How to Live and Create Your Rich Life, and that just hasn't felt quite right because I'm focused on really creating your best life. And money is a part of that, and having a rich life is one way to describe it. I oftentimes describe it as living an extraordinary life, which I personally believe we're all meant for because we are all extraordinary, unique individuals. So anyway, just a little background of the evolution of my process. If you haven't seen the show, How to Live Your Rich Life, I only watched the first episode on Netflix yesterday afternoon, but it seemed really, really helpful, especially if you're wanting some help very specifically in the finances area. So all that being said, I wanted to personally invite you to my Sunday mornings right here live on my personal Facebook page for training specific topics that you need more of in order to get your own freedom, in order to create your own liberation. This is my jam. It is the thing I love doing, and it is the work that I do with amazing individuals who are super motivated and determined to live their life in a different way and to be able to feel the most free and the most excited about being who they are. And I just wanted to share briefly with you this morning, the topic from last Sunday's training was how to make life less hard, right? How to stop making life harder than it needs to be. And one of the things that I've been going through in my own journey that I was really fearful of when I made the transition many years ago now to live differently. And I did a bunch of radical changes between selling my house, giving away a lot of my possessions, so minimizing, and people started referring to me as a minimalist. I got a whole bunch of labels is really what I'm getting at, right? So I switched from being calling myself a therapist, which I had done for over 20 years, to calling myself a life coach. I also just stopped participating in the negativity, and I stopped complaining about not having what I wanted and about not being able to make the money that I wanted to make, about not being able to take the time off that I wanted. Just there are things that people complain about, or at least in my world that they were complaining about regularly, including myself. I stopped participating in those conversations, and I stopped, co-signing and colluding with those beliefs around I can't make more money, I can't work a schedule that I absolutely love, I can't take time off, I have to work so hard, life feels so hard, I can't find love, it's so hard to find someone to love me. All of those types of thoughts and beliefs that I was stewing in for years, I just stopped participating in them. And so what I've realized over time, and again, I knew that this would happen, and it was something that I was very aware of, and I'll even say early on in my early adolescence, 20s, I had the very strong sensation that there would come a time when I would speak more boldly my truth, and in doing so, I would experience judgment and I would experience rejection from people who I used to call my own. And I didn't really know what that meant at the time. Certainly growing up in the church, I had the background of Jesus, right? And Jesus growing up and then being rejected by his own. And so I had a very clear, fundamental, foundational teaching of how that happened, how that transpires, that you can grow up alongside of people and you can call them your own. You can feel that you belong to that community, that group of people. And then when you change, right, your ideas or the way you're living, that you can then become on the outside and essentially feel rejected by that community, by that group of people. And so I certainly had it very firmly planted in my mind from a very early age because of the story of Jesus and the experience of Jesus and him, growing up in a religious home and following certain religious traditions, and then essentially stepping outside of that and beginning to share a message of truth that was very different and really very radical, right? Revolutionary. And so that was planted in my mind early on. And I also had a sense that that would be part of my experience, part of my journey, is that I would begin to share truth and awarenesses and insights that I was having, and that I would no doubt experience a similar reaction from various people in my world who I felt that I was a part of their community or a part of their community, a part of their space, a part of, my belonging was with various people. And that I would, of course, experience that. And here's the thing, right? Big picture, when I step outside of my own story and my own self, we all have that experience, right? And one of the most tangible ways that comes to my mind for how we experience that is literally when we change communities, right? Whether it's your workplace or if you're changing jobs, oftentimes that happens where you're really tightly in and then you're on the outside because you've chosen to now leave that community and work somewhere else. And the other place this very commonly happens for people is when you get divorced, right? And you decide to separate or just break up, whatever that actually tangibly, legally labeled as: divorce, breaking up, moving out, separating. And now it's sort of like you're having to choose sides, or there's that sentiment or feeling of you have to choose sides, and you're no longer necessarily a part of the community. Typically one of the two people, it becomes on the outside, right? That experience where people start to feel on the outside. And so I just want to encourage you this morning. One of the ways that we can make life hard is choosing the feeling of I don't belong, right? Choosing the feeling of disconnection, of unbelonging. And that can cause us to spiral significantly. And ironically, I didn't feel like I belonged for many years in early childhood, into my adolescence, and even when I was very much a part of various communities, whether it was my faith-based community or my social work community, my therapist community, my mental health community, my local, different places that I worked community. There were very tight levels of community that I was a part of. So it's a human experience, right? I've experienced it multiple times, and it's also a part of the human story. It's part of the human journey. It's part of the way we operate as people. If you feel like you're a part of something and then you change your position, you can then easily start to feel not a part of. And so what I want to offer to you today as a clear strategy and approach to allowing life to be easier and less hard is to choose not to side with the belief that you don't belong or that you're now on the outside. Because again, it's not actually about you, right? It's about them not being ready to receive whatever new thing is going on with you. And I think also some of it is like things just change. And when you're no longer in close proximity, or you no longer have the same exact conversation to have with someone that you've been having, regardless of the community, right? You don't have the same platform, the same way to come together, then you're simply not going to be as close and as connected. And so instead of seeing it as such a loss and allowing it to take you out, to be able to challenge yourself to think about it like there are seasons, right? And life changes. And there's always a new thing waiting for you to be a part of. And what is really most important is that you're connected to yourself, that you're a part of your own community, your own inner world, where you feel deeply connected and you are speaking your truth, right? Because that is part of how we make things hard, is we lose our power inside of believing if I don't speak my truth, I'll be able to stay a part of. But really what's more true is when I don't speak my truth, I feel less than. I feel not enough. And so instead of choosing that path, choosing the path of speaking your truth and seeking to speak your truth even more boldly and more clearly, actually helps you to get into the right rooms for you, into rooms of community and connection that will feel the most authentic and the most welcoming and appreciative of who you truly are. So wherever you're at in this journey this morning, I just want to encourage you. Be bold, be strong, be clear with who you are, and hold on to that as the most important thing. You are connected to you. You belong with you. And the more you seek that as your truth, you will absolutely attract like people into your sphere. So be encouraged. Change is a part of life. And even though it's hard in the transition, and there does come this feeling or this sensation of change and transition where you're no longer deeply connected to the same communities that you've been a part of, you're also headed for something different in the future, which is going to be equally as beautiful, if not more beautiful, because you are able to be more authentically you, more free, more liberated version of you, which is by far going to be more fun and more enjoyable for you. All right, you guys, as always, thanks for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you Sunday morning at 9:30 right here for the next training to get you more free and living your best life. Talk to you soon.